And so I think, what we're hopeful for with these tools now is just that, and I think that's what you're getting at too, is you're going to need more good advisors.
Right.
You're going to need more people that actually can service in the way that we've always wanted to. And like, we never want to, how many returns go out those, in that condensed period of time. It upsets your customer. I mean, they're getting a package at like the last possible moment.
And you guys are burnt out. I mean,
that's the thing. And we're exactly, and so I think the other challenge that you have, it's hard to sustain your brain power in a way that even can become consultative throughout the year, because you have these moments of such intense compression. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Accounting Disruptors podcast. Today's guest is Cody Sugarman, co-founder of Abacus. Abacus is doing something that our industry has needed for a long time: automating the complex, high-stakes data ingestion work that eats up huge chunks of tax professionals' time. Getting data, ingesting data, and trying to get to the point where you actually can prepare a return is quite a hefty process. What I love about Cody is that he came at this with zero preconceptions about how accounting and tax is supposed to work. He and his brother Brandon, who are both Stanford grads and engineers, they just started by asking accountants what hurt most, and they kept hearing the same answer: how painful it was to be able to get the tax data that they need to prepare a return. So they built for it. And Matt and I had a blast with this conversation. We got into the founding story, the discovery process behind Abacus, what it actually looks like to hire engineers today in an AI-first world. And we also get into the offshoring question, right? Is that something that you should be exploring today when AI is starting to take hold? There's also a pretty great moment about the bear that I won't spoil, so just stick around for that. And here's our conversation with Cody Sugarman. So Cody, thank you very much for joining Matt and myself today. Excited to learn more about how you founded Abacus and what you guys are up to. Let me just start off a little bit, just with your brother founding a company together.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of family businesses too. Not a lot of founders that are brothers together, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, usually second
out of
gen.
the gate. Yeah. So tell us, how's that going?
Yeah, they call us the Collisons of tax. It's been done. The model's been proven, but it's a bit of a unique situation. Like, we've worked together. Our whole family's very close. Like, we've got an older brother too. Yep. I just told you guys also started a company. They're a little bit further ahead of where we are.
Yep.
We also all went to Stanford. So when I was a freshman, my older brother Harley was a senior. When I was a senior, Brandon was a freshman. So we've always kind of been close and done similar things. Like, honestly, our resumes are pretty, you like squint, it's like which one's which. So we've had similar kind of upbringings and all the rest of it, kind of careers. Brandon and I started our first business together in college.
Okay.
We started something called Code Sleep Repeat. I forget if I've told you guys about it.
I don't think so.
It's more of a lifestyle business. So we were doing a lot of like tutoring and college counseling and just things for money on the side. Mm-hmm. And we kind of realized, like, could we batch these people and kind of, make our time more valuable? And so we kind of started offering these summer camps, would run them on Stanford, realized there was a good amount of money doing that. Like, we were doing batches of 20, 30 kids, charging $1,000, $2,000 a week for like college kids making $30,000 a week with like no real expenses. Wow. A pretty great gig.
It's really good.
So we kind of did that while we were in school, and then when we graduated, we were just making a lot of money. So we ended up kind of continuing to bootstrap it and grow it. And we took it to probably $1 million in revenue. Like, the way we kind of got it to take off a bit more was we went B2B. So we basically would partnered with Facebook, with Snapchat, with Proofpoint, all these big companies. And we'd basically run kind of coding camps for the kids of employees with those companies. Wow. So it'd be almost like, this is pre-COVID, like a summer daycare where, you wanted to spend more time with your family and like bring them into work. So we did that for a handful of years. And I think we just realized, like, we really enjoyed working together. We've got complementary skills. And so, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, we've been exploring things on the side and pivoting around and just nights and weekend working on things. And then Abacus, we probably found a year and a half ago, and then, saw enough pull from the market that we were like, okay, this is a thing we want to go all in on, and then haven't looked back since. But that's kind of our story getting there.
That's really cool.
And before we kind of jump into what led you to founding Abacus and what your thesis is and how's that thesis playing out, fascinated just by Stanford, right? And how many entrepreneurs come out of Stanford. And even for yourself, that here's 3 brothers go to Stanford. All 3 are founding companies. And what is it that's like in the in the water there?
Yeah, I think there's a few different elements. I mean, yeah, a lot of my buddies are also have started some either previously started or now working on companies. I think there's a few elements of it. I think one is just kind of the location, just being in the heart of Silicon Valley. I remember we'd have clubs and, people from like Bessemer and General Catalyst. And I didn't know what these things were at the time. But I think because you have all these VCs based in the Bay Area and you have this kind of density of technical talent, it's just like a natural pairing. So we would always have kind of startups coming on campus. We would try to recruit. We would have VCs coming on campus, kind of sussing out, who's building things, who are kind of the outliers here. So I think I came into it, not, my family's from London. I didn't know what an angel check or VCs or SaaS was when I went to Stanford. But I think a lot of people come in kind of knowing like they want to be a CS major, they want to start a company. So I think part of it is just like the people and the location.
Yeah.
Like even when I was there, I think the biggest major across men and women was computer science. And this was 10 years ago. Now it's probably the only major they offer at this point. So it's, I think you have like intense like engineering and talent density plus proximity to all of this like capital and startups.
Access,
and yeah, so I think that's a big part. And I think the college also plays into it a bit. Like when I was there, I had a startup I was working on called Rally. It was like a social thing, and there was like a student campus club called Cardinal Ventures, and it was like a little internal accelerator thing. They gave us a few $1,000 and brought in mentors and stuff. But in my our company didn't go anywhere. But in that cohort, one of my best friends, their company now called Pear, they've doing like 100 million in revenue. Another, I didn't know these guys as well, but business school guys started a company called Nova Credit that's now like Series C plus, crushing it. There's like maybe 15 companies in that little batch. So I think, there's also things that the university does or students do on campus that foster that.
Right.
But yeah, it's a crazy density. I think there's also just like people aspirationally, like on some East Coast schools, people want to go into banking.
I understand.
I think there it's everyone's like, I want to be a founder, engineer, PM, VC. It's just kind of a different world to some of the other schools.
I think there's something to be said about access like that, and also the belief system, I think.
I think the geography plays in really well here in that ecosystem exists and it feeds the early ideas, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a student there, I didn't even get to ask you the questions in the beginning, is like, it's an insurmountable task to get into Stanford, in my opinion. How do 3 brothers go through this process? Like, how did your first brother, like, how did that?
And were you the first
really
generation to go to college? Did your father go to college?
We were first generation. My dad did not. Yeah, the parents will be, shout out my parents. They'll be pretty excited hearing that.
Wow.
But they, I mean, I think we got, again, we coming from the UK, we didn't really know, like college in the US is kind of like a whole ecosystem. You've got college counselors, you've got people that are,
it's a big business.
I was on the college counseling side of it because I would help kids when I got there. And I feel like, it'd be people approaching me with like their 10-year-old being like, should they start a nonprofit now? And I was like, what the? It's like
nuts.
There's some intense parents in the Bay Area. So
I heard.
Everywhere.
Yeah, like one mom was like, will you tell my kid to like stop playing with his friends? And I was like, I can't. I'm not gonna do that.
Geez.
So yeah, there was some like hardcore parents. We didn't, not that our parents weren't like, our parents put a high value in education, but we didn't really grow up with that kind of, you're going to go to this school, you're going to play this game. And so credit to our older brother who kind of, when we moved, I was 12, he was 15, 16. So he was kind of in the, like he should have been planning for college at that point, and he had no idea what it was. Like he basically got to the US, had to start taking his SAT, figure it out.
Right.
But, he kind of got it together and managed to apply to a bunch of schools and, landed getting in at Stanford. And I think he blazed the trail in a way where we're like, oh, like, I didn't know, we didn't know any of this stuff, but I think credit to him, kind of figured out the process and got in. And then, we all had great grades and did great things. But I think, there's some amount of luck with these things. I don't think we did anything like, I think we worked hard, had, our parents always put a high value in education, but there's some amount of luck with any of this stuff, I think.
Yeah. Well, and also a perfect SAT score. Just saying.
And a whole lot of, I'm sure, other characteristics.
Yeah, that's all right. We can close the podcast now. Now we've gotten that out there, we can pack up shop.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a funny thing. Like when somebody brings that up, what's your immediate like, God, or what's the?
I feel like I got to take it down. I mean, I know it's on LinkedIn. I feel like it's embarrassing. And I got to take it down.
No, it's not.
It's a heck of a feat.
You know what it is? It's so relevant to everybody because you have to take it, and you're like, so you've had the experience. So many things like I haven't had the experience, so it's hard to put myself. But like you're like, oh my God, that's a thing. Yeah, I like it.
I appreciate it. No, it's I definitely got to take it down off the LinkedIn. It feels like a weird flex at this point, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. So what led to Abacus? What's the thesis? What did you guys see that you saw an opportunity here? And how do you see it playing out so far?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of approached company building in a very like non-thesis driven way.
Yeah.
Like we don't come from the tax and accounting world. We didn't know anything about the space going into it. We had just spent a very long time kind of pivoting around different ideas, nights and weekends. Like professionally, we had both worked in kind of engineering. I had been in venture for the past handful of years. And so, we kind of knew what company, and I think from watching friends do it, we kind of knew what company building looked like, but we didn't have like tax or accounting is going to get disrupted or legal or anything like that. We would just, pretty religiously have discovery calls with different people in different industries and basically try to take those problems, put them into vaporware, figure out is their willingness to pay. And I think tax and what happened with Abacus was it was the first time we actually felt pull from the market.
Okay.
Like the way we kind of stumbled into it was we had an accountant for the previous business that we were working on, Code Sugarman. They sent us a 7216, if you guys know it, the like consent to offshore, where they were going to start putting a bunch of our return prep offshore. So we were like, maybe there's an idea here. Like LLMs were kind of coming into focus. Is there some kind of back office work we could automate? And then spent probably 3 hours. Our accountant generously gave us their time to really explain to us like the landscape, the tools they were using, the pain points they had, and then kind of realized that data entry and data ingestion was just a massive pain point for them. And so we kind of identified that fairly quickly as a potential wedge into the market, but really came at it from can we build a product that what is the willingness to pay? And so before we built anything was like, okay, here's the pitch, here's what we're gonna do. Will you budget X for it? And then they were pretty excited about it. We ended up signing a contract really before the first version of the product was built. It was contingent, but so we kind of confirmed a like high 5-figure deal before getting into anything really.
Right.
And then, throughout discovery, met a bunch of other firms, realized this is a pain point for everyone. And so, we had kind of signed we had crossed 6 figures of revenue before really even having a proper product. So I think
that's an incredible,
which goes to show, right?
There's a need. So I'm still interested in, before we get to the Abacus product, what do the calls look like either between you and your brother or you and your brother and ABC Party where you're trying to figure out this idea? Because so many people are obviously very smart, very talented, and they have ways of iterating to get to the idea. So even if you could give like, what's an example of something that got close, but you abandoned and obviously ended up on Abacus?
Yeah, I think our approach was kind of ask as many questions as possible, like kind of figure out, understand the workflow. Like if you don't understand the workflow, it's going to be impossible to come up with something. Right. So the first part is just understand what their day-to-day is, what do they do, kind of identify what are the biggest pain points.
And were these calls with like professional service firms, or were you like law firms, accounting firms, or was this just broad-based, like we're going to figure something?
We would do by sector. So we did customer support for a while. So we had like a product with revenue that we ended up sunsetting, but we had like a Slack integration that would scrape all their docs and be a little like B2B bot. There's a company called Pylon that's doing it much, much better and raising a bunch of money now to do it. But we were kind of doing an early version of that. But we just didn't see a lot of adoption. Like the contracts were pretty small, like low 4-figure
Right.
deals that people weren't using it as much as we thought they would. So we
Okay.
kind of, I think for us, pivoting is once we've found, if we found something people were willing to pay for, take it as far as we could. But, ultimately, if there wasn't the market pull or the conviction on our side, that's when it was time to move on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
wasn't-
abandon early once it's determined like this product has a life
but not
cycle.
too early. Like I think
Yeah.
you don't want to like just pivot because you're like some person was
Sure.
like, oh well, these guys just raised money to do this, and then like well, someone's already doing it. I think
Yeah.
that was probably the mistake we used to make, was if we saw someone else was doing it, we would discount the idea and be like, well, someone else is solving it. I think what we realized through Abacus was, there were probably 2 or 3 competitors at the time. There's probably
Right.
10 or 20 now.
Yep.
And we kind of realized it doesn't really matter who's out there. What matters is our customers happy with the solution they're
Right.
using.
Right.
And
Right.
every single conversation was the exact same. Like, we're using these tools, we have these problems. If you could do this, it'd be amazing. So I think once you're doing discovery and every call sounds the exact same, then you kind of know, all right, there's some
something there.
like problem market fit, whatever you want to call it. And that's once we hit call 20 of the exact same conversation, then we pivoted into let's actually present a solution and figure out if they're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's mostly just discovery and problems and figuring it out, and then just basically repackage what the ideal solution would be and figure out if they're, they got budget, if they're willing to pay.
I love that because I'm a big believer in the fact that you don't need to be the first one there. And I like the validation that somebody else is trying to solve this problem.
Yeah.
And it's your unique skill set that could potentially solve that problem for the world or for your part of the market.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, we loved, like, there was a competitor that's, doing 20, 30 million revenue, and like everyone knew about it, everyone had used it, and everyone hated it. So we were
Yeah.
like, this is incredible. Like, this is like, people have already proved willingness to pay. We can anchor based on their pricing. Like, it was, in my mind, best case. Like,
Oh,
when
you
there's
had a villain.
Yeah, we had a villain,
Yeah,
and it
no,
was like
totally.
no one liked him.
It's a story. It's
and I think that's one of the most frustrating things over the past. I mean, honestly, it's been 3 decades, I would say, of very static tools.
Yeah.
And not innovating at the speed as to which other industries were innovating, and supplementing workers with more ways to not just like do the work faster but better, like more accurate, because in tax it matters, and I think that's one of the things about accounting overall, and tax, it's more deterministic than probabilistic.
100%.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
So like, hey, we were half right is not going to work.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
Yeah, and I think we've suffered in a way without tools that have been provided to us that allowed us to be more accurate. And so I think when we look at all these bottlenecks along the way, it's all this extra sort of like data ingestion and trying to prepare a tax return with multiple sources of data that you're pulling from all different places, right?
Yep.
Some is still in a non-electronic form, so you still have this aspect of, okay, I have to still key that in. Somebody's got to be responsible for getting that, and getting all that information at a point in time where you can almost like, all right, we've assembled all these items. Now you can start the tax return, right? So the let's call it like the period from January 1st to April 15th, a lot of tax returns really don't get moved until like April 1st to April 15th, and because you're not going to get the 1099s until January 31st, right? Because that's when the due date is, and you're consistently trying to find ways to get a tax return done in a very condensed period of time. Hence why so many firms have gone outsourcing, because they're trying to unlock any type of lever where you can like pull and say, all right, I have additional people to go get a tax return done.
Yeah.
Right. And so what it's done is it leads to such a compressed period of time where it's impossible to try to do anything that is going to be of strategic or consultative in nature during that period, because you're just trying to get a tax return done, or you're trying to at least get an amount done so you can tell the person this is what you got to pay in for your tax extension.
Yeah. People don't understand the compression of the time frame, in that The 315 deadline is very real, and it's for flow through entities, for partnerships, right? Which you're no stranger to. And the problem you're solving is really a pain point for people that have complexity, because the due date of 315 for flow through returns is a partnership return. That partnership return could very well be relying on another partnership return that also has a due date of 315. So oftentimes you find yourself waiting for that partnership to be filed in order to file the partnership that you're responsible for. So the market is just kind of, sometimes has difficulty understanding the way the information actually works. So giving the ability to give us time to be able to actually do the things that the clients, when you say like, what are they hiring you for? Or what is the market buying? Our clients are buying accuracy.
Yeah.
But more so, they're buying thought, right? They're buying, have you spent time with this? And it becomes really hard when your job is split between accuracy, which is a requirement, and thoughtful processing, which is also a requirement. And to get those two things together has been really difficult.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and that's why I love the fact that, and it's interesting too, I think, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you have such an advantage of being an outsider.
Yeah.
Not as an insider, and looking at this industry and this business from a different perspective, right? So, like, what has your perspective been as an outsider looking in and seeing the way things have been done? And
you could be brutally honest.
Yeah, we'd love that, actually.
It
makes for better listening.
It's a spectrum. I mean, the old accounting firm I used to work with was like a mom and pop shop, and like I was still sending him checks every year. Like, he didn't take electronic payment.
Yep.
I had to physically sign and mail. He would like try to fax me. I was like, I don't know where a fax machine is anymore. So I think there's that end of the spectrum that's like, that I think has a lot of automation to solve for before we can even really get involved.
Yeah.
But I think that exists more like the long tail of accounting firms. I don't think most top 100, top 200 where we play are kind of that archaic in what they're doing. Then I think you have kind of an interesting paradigm of, historically, I think the advantages have flown to kind of the top 4, top 10, because they've had the ability to kind of hire engineers, build technology in-house, and have this kind of economies of scale that a lot of mid-market or smaller firms haven't had. I think what's happening with companies like ours is you're seeing this kind of influx of technology and startups that are hyper-focused on a part of the problem or whatever it is, that are often going to be better than what you might get at a Big Four, or
I completely agree.
Because we're much more kind of product-focused. Let's
Correct.
just solve this. And so I think, ironically, the mid-market firms have a big advantage now, because it's much easier for them to say, let's just pilot these 10 startups. Let's figure out what's best for our team. Let's make sure we're using the kind of best tools. Whereas with the big firms that have historically had this big technical advantage, now they're in the position where, there's kind of a perverse incentive, because it's like, well, our team's already built this, and, maybe it's a better mousetrap, but like, what are these guys going to do then? And the procurement cycle is going to be much, much longer. The InfoSec reviews are a lot longer. So for us, like, the people that, in our opinion, the people that move the fastest are going to have the big advantage. And that's going to be more firms like you guys that are actively working with startups and figuring out the best tools on the market and just piloting everything they can, versus a bigger firm where, like, for us to pilot with a Big Four, it's, procurement's 6 months plus, IT review, they've got teams we're competing with. So it's a whole, I think there's a big advantage flowing to kind of the mid-market right now, who are forward-thinking and actively testing everything that's coming onto the market.
Yeah. I agree. I think you have a tremendous advantage in your space, in particular with accounting firms. And the landscape is like the Big Four, the next group. It's really like the way that you have framed it. And my question is, and it's like a rhetorical question, but coming out of Stanford with a degree, with the skills that you had, I don't believe, or would you have been as likely to join a Big Four firm to develop products in-house for them in what they could have offered you, versus what you're doing today and on your own and with your team in developing pure tech?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, when we look at like the talent pool that we're competing with like OpenAI and these other startups, and I think we're kind of looking at a talent pool where it's hard for us, even though we're working on a exciting problem and are able to raise venture money and all the rest of it. It's we're competing with 7-figure pay packages at these crazy foundational model companies. So I think the it's a whole nother thing. You know, the kind of talent war that's happening right now is crazy. And I think, you know, it's difficult enough for us to recruit talent. I think it's almost impossible if you're a big four trying to get an engineer.
Right. Yeah.
Because we have the upside of we're working on this big mission and give equity and
maybe stay there for a second, because I do think that's a very important topic right now in terms of what are the skill sets you're looking for and what you're finding so difficult to find. There's such a shakeout happening. I think we're starting to see it. And the typical sort of degree now, right? Yeah. And when I say typical, it's like you come out, you have a computer science degree. That used to be, you got a job before you're graduating. You have an accounting degree, you had a job before you're graduating, right? So you have all these, you know, skill sets and stuff like that. And then so many companies, like we're seeing, they're starting to pull back on entry-level hiring, even in accounting, right?
Yep.
And then you're seeing what's happening with coding and programming and everything with computer science engineers that are coming out. So, and we're starting to hear of big layoffs at this company, big layoffs at that company. Right. What are the skill sets though that you're, because there's a lot of people out there now, more people out there, but maybe with not the right skill set. So what are the right skill sets?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I can speak mostly to engineering because that's mostly who we're focused on hiring. But I think the trends playing out there will probably at some point, engineering is probably the fastest to adopt. Like anytime a new Cursor or Claude Code tool comes out, every engineer tries it. Like the adoption is, things immediately get tested. And if they're great, they'll take off. If they're not, they won't. I think with engineers, it's interesting because on the one hand, I think the gap between really incredible engineers and average engineers is probably widening. Like everyone's more capable now because you have LLMs and you can vibe code stuff. And, we give part of our interview process as a take home assignment. And we'll have people kind of write a bit of code and we'll review it with them and do some pair programming. And I probably look at like one of these a day with an engineer and I'll always ask them like, how much of this was LLM generated and then walk through it. And on how much is LLM generated, it's consistently 70 to 100%. Like people aren't really writing code anymore. And that's fine. We expect people to do that. That's great. It's more efficient. I think the thing that concerns me a bit is almost the scale of the understanding atrophy, where like when you push a little deeper and you're like, well, why did you write this that way? Or like, what's happening here? Yeah. I think that's where you see like the amount of times people are like, oh, Cursor did it. Or like it's almost like they're blaming the LLM, like, oh, it fucked up. It's not mine. And it's like, well, exactly. It's still your work product. Right. I think so on the one hand, I'm like extremely bullish because these tools make everyone so much more effective. Yes. But on the flip side, on the engineering side, you're seeing like, you still need to be able to have a mental model of how your code is working and think critically. And so I feel like the people that are going to absolutely crush it are the ones that have the kind of foundational understanding and are kind of going to put in the work to kind of leverage the tools and be 10x engineers or accountants or whatever.
What do you think that is? What is that? Like, how would you define? Yeah, what is that skill set?
I think it's like an actual, like, I think having like the hunger and the autonomy and like the ability to learn. Like it's never been easier to be lazy, but it's also never been easier to like actually learn stuff and figure things out and move quickly.
Because you hear this term a lot lately with founders, and I think you're on it too. It's agency, right? It's just like this ownership mentality that they are relying on the tools, and we're seeing it even in our world in accounting, where you have such better ways of getting to a solution but at the same time, like you said, you have to have accountability still for how you got there, why you got there, and if you have to pivot and adapt to that, are you able to do that, right? Yeah. Right. And so I think that's it, and I think with this ever-changing world, it's that like that quality of just wanting to have ownership of like a work product, ownership of like, I'm going to be up to speed as to what the latest tools are going to be, and I'm going to understand not just like what works with those tools, but what's not working with those tools. How do I then pivot and then understand where the gap is? And so I think that the kind of mindset is what is going to be so important.
Yeah.
And that there's just that ownership of what they're trying to control.
Yeah, 100%. Like with our team, we're still a tiny team. Like we were 5, we're now 6, and we're, selling we're in almost 10 of the top 100 firms already. Like,
Right.
I think we have been able to operate as I think a few years ago, you would never been able to get this far with such a tiny team. And I think, you're just able to do much more with much fewer people, but those people need to be high agency,
Yeah.
like, put in the work. And so I think that skill set's always been what differentiates people, but I think
Yeah.
there's the gap is widening now that you have access to these tools that can just augment that kind of.
I have a question on that specifically. So when you talk about the difference between great and good, and you're evaluating these people on the piece of technology that you have them write, and you said it's somewhere between 70 and 100%. Do you feel like, again, is there any correlation between somebody that takes the 70% product and delivers it to you and says, I've completed the remaining 30% myself, or somebody who has said, I utilized one of the LLMs or whatever I'm using to create this, to create the 100%. So either I worked in the LLM to produce the product I wanted, or I produced it myself. And I have no idea. I'm asking, like, is there a correlation between their success of being great because they have one of those skill sets, or just good because they're lacking?
It's for us, we don't really care if you wrote 0, 100% of the code with an LLM. It's more just do you actually understand what it's doing, and like how is the output? Like ultimately how you got there shouldn't matter too much. We don't want someone spending, it's not apples to apples if someone spent 2 hours versus 20 hours. But generally speaking, like I think a big thing one of the engineers we brought on, we gave him the project, he worked on it for a handful of hours, clearly understood what he was doing, but then he was like, hey, could I keep working on this? Like, it's kind of interesting, and I actually think I could do X, Y, and Z. And like that curiosity and that like just genuinely enjoys working on the problem and doing it is very different from someone that just kind of bangs out an LLM vibe coded thing, doesn't really understand it. Like that's kind of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for the end of the spectrum where, they have a deep understanding. Doesn't matter if they vibe coded it or not, but like they can explain every line and they can explain the thought process and decision making. Like we're starting to have people send us their chat history, because then we can kind of see like, will you just like fix this, make better, like just kind of prompting it into submission to get something working, or were you actually kind of trying to architect the LLM and have a thoughtful process and blah, blah, blah.
Interesting. And so talk to us now about where you feel like you've made the most progress, where you feel starting point A got to B, where's like the next step in the roadmap for us. If you can kind of think of talking to us as like, hey, here's this firm. They don't know much about Abacus. You get a chance to give your spiel about why a managing partner or CEO of one of these firms should consider Abacus. What is that pitch right now?
Yeah, I think, there's still an insane amount of kind of what we call back office work being done manually today across accounting firms. Like we're focused specifically on tax right now, and so that's where we really, solve a lot of the problem. I mean, the way that we're positioning and what we're solving right now is really about that complex data entry. Like there's been scan and populate tools in the industry for a long time, but they've never really solved for they'll solve kind of basic 1040 prep work, and they've built nice businesses off the back of that. But now you really have the ability to do these kind of ultra high net worth individuals, these family offices, these trusts, these partnerships. Like these are much more high complexity tax returns that are costing, the people paying for them tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so that's kind of where we fit into the ecosystem, is we'll do the ones with the super complex K1s, K3s, footnotes, foreign reporting, QBI. Like those are all the things that we focus on because no one really does them well today.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we would come in and partner with a firm right now, is really helping, basically being the data ingestion layer or engine for tax firms. Where we see it going to, we think that generally speaking, extracting data out of PDFs and that's kind of becoming a commodity. Like LLMs are working on it. There's lots of horizontal PDF tools working on it, raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Like we're very intentionally a verticalized company. We're not really focused on just being a good PDF ingestion tool. And so, yes, you need to have great evals and have the highest possible accuracy, but to some extent, the model providers should do a lot of that work and lifting for us. So we just need to be able to evaluate every new thing as it comes out and make sure we're giving the best possible thing on the market to our clients. I think where a lot of our value is, if you think about the work it takes to prepare a return, there's kind of the data entry and the data ingestion, but then there's the client preferences piece.
Right.
If you think about WIS, you've got thousands, tens of thousands of clients, and you could have two clients that have the same tax document, but you enter it a little bit differently into the tax software because of their preferences, because if they want to file in this state, they want to do whatever it is. And so what we're introducing into the product now is really the ability to embed your client preferences into Abacus, so that we're not just kind of automating this data entry problem, but we're also solving for that kind of, how does this client want their return prepped year on year? I think that kind of takes it from a 30-40% solution to a 70-80% solution. And you're still going to need a preparer, a reviewer in the loop to make sure it all ties, make sure it's correct, interface with the client. But I think solutions right now are probably solving 20 to 30%. We're probably at 60 to 70, but there's still a lot of room to run.
Yeah, I think anybody in our position and the clients that we handle, it's really every client is an edge case.
Yep.
Like really, they don't come to us because they have a W-2 and they get, it's typically there's a lot of complexity to their life. So that's another thing within the industry that's become really difficult to solve. Obviously, it hasn't been solved yet. So we're excited, but it's funny because when I think about your product, and the whole question becomes scalability, right? How do we scale? And so how do you think about or deal with the scalability, yet the requirement to be so bespoke at the level? Like if I think about the iteration of the product, and I'm completely guessing here because I don't know the plan, right? So if I have client A that has these certain sets of preferences based upon our interpretation of their data, what their actual fact set is, when we utilize Abacus and create that case for them, for this specific client, does that live forever with this client and it becomes a repeatable process? And is there anywhere where we're creating agency to repeat that case? Like, are we able to pull on that experience or?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're building in. So we're calling them playbooks. But
Okay.
essentially, you have your client preferences so it's a little extra work year one to kind of set up, this is how my client wants their return prepped. But then we persist those year on year. And so one of the great things about that is, let's say you have a preparer that's been doing a client for 5 years and they leave, there's that knowledge transfer that you guys lose.
Right.
But if it's embedded in Abacus, then someone can come in and knows exactly what the preferences are. And you guys have an industry term of like same as last year. And so I think that's
Sally.
kind of So that's kind of, I think, where you can start to solve 100% of the problem. Like even a same as last year now is going to take you a ton of time, but I think that really should be a 90%, 100% automatable task. If it's a new client, you've got to learn their preferences. That's never going to be fully automatable. You're going to need a human in the loop to, interface with them, advise, dig into the tax code. But if it's the same as last year return, which the majority really are, that's where you should really be able to embed those preferences and just roll them to the following year.
So how do you tell us how you see the ecosystem playing out with what has been the tax software sort of playbook, right? Where you had CCH, you had Thomson Reuters; those were like the two big ones.
Yeah.
How do you see all this playing out, and where you fit in that? Are you going to run the layer above it? Like how do you see it working?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're very focused on like the human layer of just automating as much work as we can in that layer. I think that's what AI is good at. I think that's where we can add the most value. That's where our expertise is. You kind of have these two giants, Wolters Kluwer, CCH. You've got Thomson Reuters, and they're kind of making billions of dollars a year each on their software products that no one really loves. So there's definitely a massive opportunity in disrupting those businesses.
Right.
And someone will disrupt those businesses at some point and kind of take that seat. I think for us, we're focused on the core competency right now of just working with whatever legacy provider we need to make sure that we can automate people's work as efficiently as
you're
they can.
You're really at the workflow level.
We're more at the workflow layer for now. We think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of continue to go deeper and deeper. Like if we get to the point that we're really automating, all of the work up until the actual, return, sending off the return to the IRS, because those companies are just wrappers on the IRS, really. There's definitely a way we could go around and just go directly to the IRS and compete. But there's a lot of regulatory red tape there. That's a much, that'd be a down the line thing for us.
Right.
It's really interesting just thinking, like, if I try to put myself in my client's shoes and think about our process is so murky to the outsider. And so
It's opaque.
when I think about like my early years in accounting, and I've, been at WIS a long time, but even prior to that, there's so much value lost to the individual in terms of experience. So I know a lot of people are worried about AI taking entry-level jobs, and we certainly are worried about jobs and job, creation. But if I truly think about a lot of the things that I did, and I'm sure you experienced this, a major difficulty and where I spent a considerable amount of hours is I knew where I wanted a number to end up on a tax return, and we and our collective group as CPAs would spend an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out where to put that number in the software so it showed up in that space. Like that's a I mean,
I think what was interesting in what you're saying too, and that's why when you think about the world that's been created because of the software, right? And yes, the software definitely was an improvement at some point when people were doing these by hand, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But what happened is you had to almost just become an expert in the software versus an expert in the actual tax return.
Yes.
Yeah, and we would go to these CPE classes. As an accountant, you need these credits every year to maintain your CPA license. And we typically would have a tax person in front of the room who was just going through, that's on the A1 form, and then it's like,
That's a crazy,
it was like,
and you immediately forget.
Yeah, so it was like data entry or whatever, and it was, it wasn't user friendly. And even as technology has advanced, there's been very little innovation in the software itself. So a lot of times we had no idea how the numbers were even coming together.
Yeah,
like somebody be like, look at the schedule or form, whatever. I'm like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. How'd that number get there?
Yeah. There's a lot of like random appendages in these software. I mean, when we have one in-house accountant who we've been working with for about 6 months, and when we were making that hire, it was less, do you know the tax code inside and out? It was more, do you know these pieces of legacy software inside and out? Like, do you know Access? Do you know Go System? Do you know UltraTax? And so, I mean, the skill set is really almost being an expert in these crazy legacy systems.
Yeah,
and knowing
that's
that,
right.
Even though this box says this, there's a really specific one, but in a partnership return, if you try to enter a state K1 into like the activity grid, it doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do it.
Doesn't do anything.
You have to go to
and it's the most frustrating thing. You just I keep hitting refresh. That's the example of we became really good at figuring out which box to put it in so it showed up there, and lost ourselves in the what was I hired for?
Yes,
I'm supposed to read this return now and determine what are the things that we can do to impact these numbers. What's the advice I can give to the client?
Hard.
And that's one of our North Stars internally is how much time can we prevent you from spending time in those softwares?
Right.
So a big
That's where I'm not worried about job loss. When people worry about the things about job loss, that like there was how much experience did you gain? How much more marketable did we become? Because we figured out which box to put it in, right? That's a non-saleable asset.
I think the thing is, there's first of all, as we were talking about a little bit before, a lot of people have no idea what it is we do and how we get to what like that end product. A lot of times, like they'll see an end product and be like, "How could that cost that much money?" I have no idea. Like we run around like mad, men and women. And I think really it's been like we've been really operating with like one hand tied behind our back,
right?
Doing the best we can with additional complexities that continue to not just in business, because business has become more complex, but legislation has become more complex as we've moved into a digital world. Oh my gosh, every state's handling sales tax different. There's different nuances with some of the states as it relates to fixed assets, what you depreciate, what you don't depreciate. So it's like all of these like nuances that are difficult in and of itself, right? But we have like an army of people just in processing, right? That literally are in data ingestion, right? And making sure that the information gets into our electronic files so we can actually go and prepare a return. And then there's all these people that spend time making sure the returns get filed through the processing. And then the payments, the IRS puts the payment obligation really on the accountants, which is like horrific. And the software providers really try to be agnostic with all the payments because they want no liability or culpability whatsoever, right? So it's been really difficult to advance as a professional when you have all of these data and like more like administrative type work that you spend most of your time on, quite honestly.
Yep.
And so I think, what we're hopeful for with these tools now is just that, and I think that's what you're getting at too, is you're going to need more good advisors.
Right.
You're going to need more people that actually can service in the way that we've always wanted to. And like we never want to, how many returns go out those, in that condensed period of time. It upsets your customer. I mean, they're getting a package at like the last possible moment.
And you guys are burnt out. I mean,
that's the thing. And we're exactly, and so I think the other challenge that you have, it's hard to sustain your brain power in a way that even can become consultative throughout the year because you have these moments of such intense compression. So like, that's why we love what you're doing. We're really looking at you guys as like, thank God.
No, we appreciate it. We're grateful for the partnership. I mean, you guys have been great.
Yeah.
We've been working together for a while. And I feel like, we appreciate the feedback you guys have given us. We appreciate the kind of, willingness to iterate and watch us kind of grow things and now doing the full kind of rollout. But it's for us and for any startup really, I feel like you got to find your early champions and people that actually want to invest the time in you because, we didn't know anything when we started this. And so, finding the right champions and partners that are like, not just obviously everyone wants the benefit of the technology, but are also willing to like give time. I mean, we've spent, hundreds of hours on the phone to your guys' associates and preparers.
Well, no, but that's great about you guys that you're doing that. And I think that's one thing that I'd want our listeners to hear is that, again, every firm, and you spoke about it before, the customers have their preferences, the work that is done at different firms are going to have their preferences. You have different tax preparers have their preferences, right? So you have all kinds of individual customized workflows, right? So I think it's not going to be a solution in a box.
Yeah.
And I think if there are a lot of organizations waiting for that solution to come in a box, they're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's for us, a big part of figuring out who we want to partner with is do they want to invest the time to make sure this works within their workflow, or are they looking for kind of an out-of-the-box 100% solution? And, that second camp at some point will get there, but I think the firms that wait for that kind of perfect, all-encompassing thing are going to be waiting a lot of time, and they're going to fall behind in the meantime. So I think it's, the iterating is important.
And no firm is too small, right?
No. We're generally targeting top 100, top 200.
Okay.
But for us, if you have, we have a few firms that just have a lot of high complexity returns where it makes sense to kind of partner with them. And so we're kind of targeting more mid-market, like larger firms, with some exceptions of like these guys just do a ton of ultra high net worth individuals and they're dealing with tens of thousands of K1s, and like then that's another great fit for us.
Okay, cool. If you were to start an accounting firm from scratch today,
this could be a good question.
Yeah. How would you build it?
It's an interesting question. I mean, we would probably start from like the primitives of the technology. Like, what do we think is the best tax solution to actually build this on? Like, you've got, Go System, Access, UltraTax, all these things. I think that's a big part of it, is just because that's kind of the engine fueling you. So I think that, I don't want to out who we like or don't like on that.
Understood. We can be agnostic to providers.
We love all the big players out there. But I would say that's kind of the big layer, because the switching cost is so high. Like we talk to customers all the time who are like, we've been using software X for the last decade, and like we're just never going to change because it's, there's no real effective way to do it.
It's so sticky. Like I said, we have figured out where to put it in that box.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you got to figure that out again.
Yeah, because they made it so complicated, they've made it extremely
You got to go through that whole thing.
There's like a whole business to be built on just helping people get out of tax software providers. Because the lockup is even going from like the on-prem version to the cloud-based version within the same provider is like a year plus process.
It was a
for some
massive
firms.
undertaking when we did that.
Yeah, it's great, which it shouldn't be. 'Cause it's
Right,
like
I
the
know.
same
It's-
software.
yeah.
But it's like, yeah. So going from like vendor A to vendor B, like it's very rare we hear of that. So
Right.
which is why they've got great businesses, but it's also a bit of a, so I think once you've made that decision, you're going to be locked in for a while. And then, yeah, I mean, we would obviously leverage Abacus. We would use, there's other vendors we have a lot of respect for, and like in the audit space, Data Snipper, we're big fans. We hear great things about. So I think we have an interesting position in that we're always trying to understand what are the tools people like and keeping a pulse of what people like. But yeah, I think we would start with the technology, and then, distribution's the thing we would struggle with, I guess, and that's why you're seeing all these CPA roll-ups from the venture world. Like you've got kind of Thrive and Crete, you've got all these people kind of putting venture money into the roll-ups, which, I guess we'll see how it all plays out.
Yep.
But it's definitely happening, this big kind of consolidation of firms, and I feel like it's probably 3 or 4 times it's happened where we're kind of in a sales process with a firm, and then they get scooped up by another firm, and now our person got moved around, and we're dealing with the new. So, yeah, the consolidation's happening every day. It's pretty intense.
It's been
a lot of disruption.
Yeah.
PE. You had a lot. I think a lot of the demographics played into this too, just because there was such a significant number of CPAs retiring in a very short period of time. So there was this already a mindset of exit, right? So it's like, okay, how do you exit? And then the PE saw an opportunity to come in, and it's been interesting though. I think like how that whole playbook is going to run, and I think it's still too early to tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could see different ones definitely playing out and working, and others possibly not, or maybe not to the extent that maybe was hoped for. I think the one thing that I wanted to just touch on, and you talked a little bit about it earlier, was offshoring. And so a lot of firms are still contemplating offshoring, and it's been a little bit surprising to me, honestly, just because like the tools are somewhat here, and they're going to be even more pervasive. So, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of, we came into the space through offshoring, and so we, a lot of the firms we work with have some kind of offshoring. And there's kind of a spectrum. There's like they've built out their own team in India and office, and they're full-time employees. That's kind of model A. Some of them will hire people seasonally, and like they've got people that will come in house for a few months during the busy season. There's people that use offshoring practices will just pay per return, and we hear like mixed things about all three. Probably A is the most popular option and what we think makes the most sense. But I think the supply demand dynamics are a bit off now. I think the people that got in early feel like they got great deals, and the people that are trying to build teams there now feel like it's a lot more expensive than it used
the
to be.
arbitrage isn't there.
The arbitrage is not there anymore.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of the times we're negotiating or we're dealing with new people, they're like, can my offshore team use this tool? And so,
interesting.
One way of looking at it is we're replacing the offshore team, which I do think is where we're going with a lot of this
Yeah,
stuff.
agreed.
But for the people that already have it in place, so like if I have, 50 people and I can shrink that to 5 and they can still do all this kind of back office work for me with Abacus, that's fine too. So I think it's going to start with a shrinking for the people that have already invested the resources, and it'll eventually be a full replacement, mostly because people, the problem with offshoring is you have the same problem. They're still inundated with work in the busy season. And so they're still dealing with long turnaround times and everything happening. So, if we can turn something around in 10, 20 minutes, you're still going to have to send it offshore.
It's
manage
still
that
still
team, and
humans.
It's right.
Yeah, that's
that
the
was
whole
one of
thing,
our
right?
biggest
It's the whole
learnings. We were
thing.
like,
It's
oh
just
my
like it's still
gosh, they're-
people,
Yeah,
right?
even if it's cheaper, you've still got the
Yeah,
problems of like
Their personnel.
and people are more prone to mistakes. Let's face, especially under pressure.
And just life, like they're humans. They have days off. They're sick. They move jobs. We get new talent. The talent
Right.
isn't the same as the old one. Like it's still an organization.
Yeah, it's amazing the quality too. Like not just offshoring, but if you can get your return in early, man, your return is humming with quality.
It's true.
Yeah. Before I get to the speed round kind of questions I wanted to fire at you, anything I didn't ask you that you think we should have covered or that you want to touch on?
Nothing specific. I'll post speed round. I'll let you know if any comes into my head. But
All right, cool. So what do you think is the most overhyped thing about AI right now?
I think the thing that I touched on earlier of like, I see a lot of kind of maybe intentionally inflammatory LinkedIn posts of like, we fired all our engineers and it's just vibe coders now and like one teenager, and I feel like that's all kind of bullshit. I
Yeah,
think, like
good.
engineers are still good engineers.
Yep.
And
And a good accountants is still good accountants. There we go.
I think
That's right.
that's a bit of a overhyped. Like I don't think it's overhyped, and like, yeah, people are working way more efficiently. You can run way more lean. Like there's
Yeah.
a big deficit in talent, or the big gap in kind of talent to people's capabilities. But yeah, I mean, like I think what made a good engineer 5 years ago is the same thing that makes a good engineer today.
Right.
I think it's just now, there's an extra checkbox of can they use the tools, but if you're a good systems level thinker, if you're, a hard worker, high agency, like those are all still things that matter. So I think that I feel like it's like we're not going to be just doing like vibe coding boot camps, and like if you can, because then you're kind of like a human wrapper on GPT, and like you're not really adding that much value. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I think is a little bit overhyped.
Yeah, agreed. What about if you had one line item to send to every top 200 CEO, managing partner? What would that state
Like
about?
subject line. Email
Yeah,
type
like
of
why
hypey-
Abacus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we've sent several emails to every top 200 MP.
Yeah.
So I can tell you what our subject line is.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's a very like split tested, sloppy. It's something like AI, Stanford, tax nerds building for whatever. Like,
love it.
We've optimized it. So whatever it is, I could check and tell you.
Yeah.
But
I'd probably that's probably how I got to
I think it is how we got to you. I'm sure I could find the email thread and like
Stanford
that's how
AI,
You know,
tax,
for us,
savings,
the
data
subject line is
ingestion.
just like get them to read the email
Yeah,
and then we
right.
get into what we do.
Right.
But yeah, kind of just headline grabby, like, okay, these guys are interesting and worth meeting with. But yeah, I'm sure we've sent out several emails to the full top 200 list.
Awesome. And then unlimited sponsorship budget. Who's repping Abacus? Who is that
Like,
person? Who's the Michael Jordan at Abacus?
Have like a celeb or like
Yeah,
any person
anybody.
we could-
Anybody that you would think would, man, this would
a
be,
great representative.
yeah.
It's tough because so much of our
Isn't that tough?
I don't
Who's
know
a celebrity
who would you
accountant?
guys want if you could have any WIS sponsor.
So it's like like Michaela Schifrin would be really good right now because you just won the gold again.
That'd be a cool one.
What about somebody like Myron Scholes?
Yeah, right. It's a great question. I'm always like athletes in my mind. I always think possess like because you can go with adversity or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Matt. What would you do?
This is a tough question. It's a really tough question.
I know.
I'm rarely at a loss for words, but I haven't
know.
put any thought into it.
I hit you back with a quick fire.
You did?
That's really
I'm
good.
not-
Yeah.
this
Look,
is
if
not
I
my
had an
exposure.
unlimited budget,
Yeah.
Lionel Messi,
Okay. That's a solid
unlimited
one.
budget. Yeah, worldwide. Doesn't rep a lot of stuff, so he'd be known to be like, wait, how did Whisk get associated with Messi?
That's
Right?
true.
World
yeah,
Cup's
the shock
coming.
factor, like what's going on?
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
weird-
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
partnership.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the answer to the question could go a number of ways, right? The one that I would think would have the biggest market impact.
Yeah. I immediately went there.
Like,
Yeah.
a brand sponsorship by Claude as the chosen
Yeah.
accounting firm would be ridiculous, right? Or one
Yeah.
of the large language models of note would be unreal. Within the finance sector, I don't know.
I know.
I mean, I love athletics like you. Like the individual athlete is always something that's going to be near and dear. So if it was like an endearing piece like that. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It was interesting at one point in time. If I had but I think just to go on this because it's fun. But
I'm not the interviewer.
No, I figured out.
yeah, no. It's just good. You turned it back on us, you know. No, but you know what? Honestly, like for a while, it's like the best would be because it really is like accounting firms like a back kitchen. It's like we try to present to the client like we want to be Michelin star, but man, what goes on in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So I was always like, man, if I can get anybody from the Bear.
Oh, all right. That's a great.
Yeah.
Our underdog thesis is really the case. Like,
Yeah.
we always feel like the underdog in a variety of ways. We're the underdog because there's an established market of firms that have a variety of tools that we historically before our true dive into AI, had access to a lot of things that we were always concerned about. So we always felt like the underdog from that perspective. And then we had the underdog feeling of the market positions us. And it kills me when people call it back office. It's just such a derogatory term. I've said like within this office, like one of my missions, like you get one chance to go through it, is to change it to make accounting a front office
And it
operation.
should be.
Yeah,
Like it is such a
I mean-
driver of change and relevance and information. And so like if we think about the underdog and who we want to be.
I think Abacus and Whist would be a great commercial with the bear.
Oh,
Like here we are, the orders are flying through, and there's Abacus. It's
Yeah,
like,
we'll
and then
get
you
that
have like
next.
their side of the
yeah.
kitchen, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
because
no,
the-
it's really true. I mean, like one of the things, that we see.
Wait, you're letting him off the hook?
I
Sure.
know. I'm gonna
I
get back. I'm
kinda-
getting
All right,
back.
all right,
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
giving him time to really digest. But like real quick on this, like, I think what really hurts when we see it so many times is not like we live in a world where we're around a lot of people that I would say like we're continually learning. Right, like that's what's really cool about a public accounting space is you're always learning, you're always kind of sharing, you're experiencing a lot of stuff together. So there's camaraderie. I feel bad a lot of times for the people that are building accounting departments in-house at companies, where the owner of the company or the CEO they don't value sometimes that person. And we've seen so many dysfunctional relationships. That's one thing we would love to see changed. And I think the tools are really going to help.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the communication only exists because it's like the owner's not happy they didn't get the information on time or they're not getting the right information. And again, like they've been operating, if we feel like we're one hand tied behind our back, they have like 1.5.
Yeah.
I mean, really hard.
And it's tough because most of those accountants, you go into accounting for a variety of reasons, but most accountants are pretty driven. They don't inherently want to do a bad job. They don't want to be slow. They don't want to be all the things that they're subject to.
Yep.
And a lot of it has been because of a lack of innovation or adoption when it's available to actually embrace these tools and change their lives and make them become part of a front office.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. All right, so who's repping?
Now I've had some time to digest. I mean, I like the kind of going with someone out there for like why are they doing this? So I'd probably go Taylor Swift now. I feel like if we were on there,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
and I feel like if you got like Abacus, like automate your accounting, that's like what's going on there.
Yeah.
God, they get
That would
Very
be
fair.
huge.
That'd
her
be
tax
a-
return's
know?
got to be pretty complex.
What's up?
Her
Oh,
tax
yeah.
return's
Oh,
gotta
yeah,
be-
we-
I
what
guess
to
then
do.
she's also going to be doing one of your theme songs then. For
Oh yeah,
Abacus, so-
That's,
Okay.
that's the whole just Taylor Swift in the office all day. We
I
are
love
big
it.
fans. So
Yeah. We
I know
are
She's
too.
a watcher.
Yeah,
so
oh, yeah.
shout out T Swift.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I'll tell you, man. I'm waiting for her to get back on tour. I happen to be my daughter says I'm getting Taylor Swift tickets, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, cool, good luck, So she gets them overseas. She says they're cheaper overseas.
Yeah. No, they were.
Right?
They were.
And
Where'd
so-
you
That
go?
must have been a nice surprise.
Yeah, Vienna.
Okay. Classic.
The
yeah.
problem was that was the one that got canceled. So we got all the way over there. She's super excited.
Wow.
And we're like walking through the streets that evening before the concert the next day. And I see this one girl like melting down, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, because it's probably like close to midnight, and I'm thinking, probably maybe a few too much to drink, her boyfriend, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I see another, and I'm like 10 minutes later, I'm walking, and I see this girl like sobbing uncontrollably, and her mother's comforting her, and they're on the phone. I'm thinking, oh my god, they must have just lost somebody. Like
Yep.
somebody died.
Yeah.
Because Taylor Swift got canceled.
It's worse.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
No. She was moving. I went with my girlfriend to see her in Tampa.
Okay.
It was also cheaper than New York. Was crazy.
Yeah.
And people were losing their minds. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a weird thing where our hotel got like canceled or something, and I think in like Tampa, Florida, like a Courtyard Marriott was like $1,200.
It's unbelievable.
It was just like the
she
whole
is
the,
just
the economy of that city just like shifted.
yeah, and that's what happened. So it was really neat though because like the whole city rallied, and I have some pretty cool videos of just they would have these gatherings in the middle of the city, just doing her whole concert list. People were just singing,
Oh, that's all.
and it was really cool. So in a way, it was like really neat how the city came together, vendors were doing really cool special things. They were giving out gifts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So it's nice how everybody rallied around it, but I'm still waiting. I haven't never gone. So
Damn.
it's on the list.
Next time around.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great.
Thank you
you
guys
so
for having me.
much.
No, this was amazing.
I appreciate it.
You guys.
Yeah, thank you for
Good
coming,
luck.
brother.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep, you got it.